Welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim. Today we continue our journey with Hopeful and Christian on their way to the Celestial City as we read part 1 of chapter 17. Enjoying the country of Beulah. Now I saw in my dream that by this time the pilgrims had gotten past the enchanted ground. They were now entering the country of Beulah, where the air is sweet and refreshing. Since their way lay directly through it, they enjoyed some peace and comfort there for a time. They enjoyed every day they spent in that place, seeing lovely flowers and hearing the continual singing of birds. In this country the sun shines night and day, thus it is beyond the valley of the shadow of death. It is also out of the reach of the giant despair. They could not so much as catch a glimpse of Doubting Castle. Quite the contrary, here they were able to see the city of their destination, because it was on the border of heaven. The Shining Ones commonly walked in this land. Also in this land the covenant between the bride and the bridegroom was renewed. Yes, here as a bridegroom rejoices over his bride, so their God rejoices over them. Here they had no lack of food or wine, for the place is filled with an abundance of all they had been seeking in their pilgrimage. They were able to hear voices from the city, loud voices proclaiming, "Say to the daughter of Zion, surely your salvation is coming. Behold, his reward is with him." All the inhabitants of the country called them the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. Now as they walked over this land, they did more rejoicing than they had in all the other places in their journey put together. As they drew near the city, they had an even more wonderful view of it. It was constructed of pearls and other precious stones, and they could see a street paved with gold. The beauty of the city and the radiance of the sunbeams coming from it were such a glorious sight that Christian became sick with intense longing. Hopeful also was stricken with the same affliction, and because of their pangs they lay there for some time crying out, "If you find my beloved one, tell him I am sick with love." After a time, however, their strength was renewed, and they were more able to bear their sickness, and so they continued on their way. As they came nearer and nearer to the city, they saw beautiful orchards, vineyards, and gardens with gates opening onto the highway. As they approached one such gate, a gardener was standing there, and they asked, "Whose lovely vineyard and gardens are these?" He replied, "They are the king's, and they are planted here for his delight, and also for the comfort of pilgrims." So the gardener invited them into the vineyards and told them to refresh themselves with the delicious produce. He also showed them the king's walks and arbors where he delights to visit. They lingered here and fell asleep. Now I saw in my dream that they talked more in their sleep at this time than they had ever in all their journey. Because I was in deep thought over this, the gardener spoke to me and said, "Why do you contemplate this matter? It is the nature of the fruit of the grapes of these vineyards that go down smooth and sweet, causing the lips of those who are asleep to speak." Chapter 17, Part 2. Two Shining Ones. When they woke up, I saw they determined to go up to the city. Being of pure gold, the city was so extremely bright and glorious that they could not look directly at it except through a special instrument that veiled its brilliance. I saw that as they went on, two Shining Ones met them. They were dressed in clothing that shone like gold. Their faces also shone like the light. These two asked the pilgrims where they came from, and they answered. They also asked them where they had lodged, what difficulties and dangers they had experienced, and what comforts and pleasures they had met in the way. The pilgrims answered all their questions. Then they said, "You have only 2 more difficulties to meet, and then you will be in the city." Christian and Hopeful asked the Shining Ones to go along with them, and they told them they would. But, they said, "You must obtain it by your own faith." So I saw in my dream that they went on together until they came to within sight of the gate. Chapter 17, Part 3. The Unavoidable River. Then I saw a river that flowed between them and the gate. There was no bridge for crossing over, and the river was very deep. The pilgrims were astonished by the sight of the river, but the Shining One said, "You must go through it, or you cannot approach the gate." The pilgrims then began to inquire as to whether there was any other way to the gate. They answered yes, but there have been only two, Enoch and Elijah, who have been permitted to walk that path since the foundation of the world. It will not happen again until the last trumpet shall sound. Then the pilgrims, especially Christian, began to lose hope and become despondent. They looked this way and that, but could find no way to escape the river. They asked the Shining Ones if the river was of the same depth in every place. The men answered, "No, but we cannot help you in this case either, because the waters are of greater or lesser depth, depending on your faith in the king of the place." We'll leave it there and pick up next week with chapter 17, part 4, Passing Through the River.